So, welcome to level 5, and this moves us to the icing on the cake, which is how do you keep people with you, having made an agreement with them, having influenced and persuaded them to agree to actions. How do you make sure it works? Because otherwise it kind of fade away. It does fade away quite often, as you probably noticed. Some people don't pursue it through. So some thoughts for you to help. I have made the mistake of thinking an agreement is made when people say, oh yeah, I completely support you and agree with you. Now we know where we're headed, and then you find you're chasing and very little happens, and it's so frustrating. So this final step is so important in the process, and that is making sure people back you and stick with you. And we do that by asking questions just before we start and go off and do the work on the agreement that we've made. Before we begin shooting off and getting it done, well, hopefully getting it done, we talk about how we're going to work together. Now, if you are a little concerned that the person might not deliver, some of these questions might help you. The how can we questions. So here we go. How can we monitor each other's progress? That's a really good question to ask. So somebody, what do you mean? Well, how are we going to keep track of how each other's doing, or how the two teams are doing? Can you make any suggestions? I've got some ideas, because we do need to make sure that what we've agreed actually happens. How do we deal with things if they're late? I may be late. Of course, I might. Something might happen with my home life, with my work life. You may be late. Let's be frank about it to start with. We'll do our best. But what are we going to do if we are? How do we get others to commit? How do we get other teams to commit? How are we going to get finance to commit? How are we going to get IT to commit? Whatever other teams are needed in order to get this deal done and to get this agreement working, how do we work together to get others involved? So ask the question. Don't assume it's all going to go really smoothly. Here's another good one. When the goalposts change, what are we going to do? Because that's going to throw us a bit. So how do you recommend we adjust quickly? And I've used this, and people often say, well, let's just have regular catch-ups and keep each other informed. You go, yeah, good idea. So how regularly do you want? Should we do it every other day, twice a week? Yep, that's fine. Off we go. And we're beginning to put pressure that we're going to do this. We've made an agreement. You've influenced and persuaded them, and we're actually going to do this. And how are we going to manage the workload to make sure that we do deliver to each other? Because we're both going to get, both teams, both sections, both groups, we're all going to get overloaded with work. So what are we going to do to make sure we manage that? So these questions push pressure onto the other side to say, look, I'm serious about what I've influenced you to do. I'm serious about what I persuaded you to do. We're actually going to deliver it. So let's talk about the very nub of making sure that we do deliver to each other. Bring that into your conversation right at the end, and you'll make sure then that what you have influenced people to do will actually follow through.